Cecile, greetings to you and your very intelligent guest. She has a very, very clear picture of Nigeria and by extension Africa's problem and the solutions she deserves to be Nigeria's next president. I didn't say that, they did. Right.
I like the character, the personality of Kamala Harris, and I liked the personality of Obama. And a lot of people like the personality of Donald Trump. But that is not why you vote for a president. It's not about personality. And that is how American politics gets you. There's this thing whereby you elect someone because you fall into the euphoria of their campaign, and then you're 2 years into their presidency, and they do things that don't align with you or you don't agree with, and you have no control. You have to wait another however many years to vote for them. So these are the things that sort of awakened me. Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting conversation. People were not having this conversation. The mainstream news in the West are obviously never going to have this conversation. They'll suppress it. Unfortunately for us in Africa, we are forced to consume Western media and propaganda. DSTV is owned by a French company. So whatever comes out of there, it's controlled by the West. And another issue in Nigeria is that we elevate Western perspectives over ours. And there's no other people like it's even, at least, like, I'll give it to Black America. They don't do that. They don't pedestalize the views of the white man over our own. But we do that in Nigeria. I never learned African history in school, ever. So when I was 23, I started making a documentary on African history. And this is when things like the Berlin Conference, which I should have known about in school, was introduced to me. Out of nowhere, you watch them decide that would suppress sort of the Russian narrative and decide we're going to do all these things to Russia. We're going to sanction them. We're going to remove them from every single sort of social media, YouTube, all these things. And I think for me, it was shocking. And it's not like I don't support Russia. Honestly, to be honest, I don't even care what happens with these people. I'm not on Russia's side, nothing. But I am able to see both sides. And the question is, if they can remove Russia from YouTube, if they can remove them from what would they do to us Africans? At least Russian, they are white. These are white people. These are their own white people. They're doing this to their own white people. So what would they do to us if we fall out of line with their agenda? And you see sort of this changing world order. That is interesting to me. I think that is an opportunity to me for Africa. But I think that it's very important to understand the dynamics of colonialism and neocolonialism, and for us not to say, oh, we're going to swap this master for this master. But instead, I think a multipolar world is beneficial to Africa because it gives us leverage. I would even argue that right now we would say that we almost have like a bipolar world where there are two polars. We want to have like five. So nobody can just take advantage of one country.
Now we go across borders. We're going to the United States. Yes, indeed. We are going to Washington, I believe. Now, you're not going to be able to watch it now, but after this conversation, I am going to direct you to YouTube. You need to go and watch a new documentary, and I believe I've got the title right because I watched it myself. It's titled, "Who is the Best US President for Africa?" Now, that documentary filmmaker is my next guest. As you know, the President of America, as I keep telling all of you, is the president of the world, which is why we actually need to know who is best for Nigeria, by extension Africa. My guest is Kenim O. Let me tell you who she is. She's a recent graduate of Harvard Business School with a deep commitment to advancing Pan-African empowerment. Kenim has dedicated a career to examining the complex intersections of global politics, economics, and African sovereignty. Her latest documentary delves into the critical questions of U.S. foreign policy in Africa, exploring the neo-colonialist agenda and evaluating which U.S. president could truly benefit the continent in light of the upcoming U.S. election. Kenim, welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
No, it's my pleasure. Look, so let me tell you first and foremost, I saw your interview on Arise. All right. You probably saw me stalk your handle. I'm the one that wrote my message before I said to my producer, find her for me. You know, I saw you interviewed on Arise, and I was pleasantly surprised, impressed, and engaged simply because you're a young Nigerian African who clearly grew up in the US. And thoughts on this, the fact that you even went as far as to do a documentary on it, for me, is, you know, it's part of what makes me proud, not only as you know, if you like, an auntie, but don't you dare call me auntie, you know, and as a woman, as a female, as a Nigerian, as an African, as somebody who's you know, I keep saying to people, in the later years of my life, I'm driven also by my race and gender politics. So thank you for doing the documentary. 2.5 hours of engaging, and you use so many other sort of conversations and interviews in it, which is what makes it 2.5 hours. So firstly, let's start from here. Why? What made you do that documentary? What drove you to do it? What inspired you to do it?
First of all, thank you for having me on. I will say what inspired me was the lack of sort of information and knowledge that people that I've been having conversations with, especially Black people, have on the dynamics of the US elections and US politics and geopolitics in general. I've been fortunate to been working in the political sphere for over a decade, and I did 5 Africa trips with Obama as a member of the White House Press Corps, which sort of opened my eyes to all of that. I've been following this story of neocolonialism ever since. And yeah, I was just shocked at seeing sort of people just so willing to give their votes to the Democratic Party and support the Democratic Party without really understanding some of the nuances behind it. And then as well with the Republican Party, as much as like, it's a double-edged sword, because like, as much as, you know, there are pros to the Republican Party, it's still a racist, white supremacist party today. So it's very complex, and how it's hard to tell people who to vote for. So yeah, I just thought it was an interesting conversation. People were not having this conversation. The mainstream news in the West are obviously never going to have this conversation. They'll suppress it. And so I thought this is an opportunity for me, living in Washington, D.C. here, to really expose these intricacies.
And I'm glad, and like I said, this is why I was so excited when I saw your interview and in fact your documentary, because this is a conversation that we on Borderlines like to have. Because one of the things, I don't know whether you've read a book, there's an essay, a seminal essay by Panache Chimurenga, who said that it's titled "Why I No Longer Talk to Nigerians About Race." Okay. It's a really jarring essay, and that's pretty much what you've said, that we are not having those conversations. We're not having the critical, we're not exploring what this means, because this is the president of the world, and let's be honest, they're going to drive what actually happens, not just to Africa, but in our homes, the food that gets on our table. Most people don't realize that. The amount of petrol that goes into your generator, most people don't realize that. So having sort of gone through that journey, you spoke about, you just said about the Republican Party, and the Democrats Party. You voted for Kamala, as you said in your documentary,
as a senator.
Yes,
running
when
for
she was
senator in 2016.
That's right. You voted for Kamala. Why did you vote for Kamala then, and what was the awakening? Because obviously you're clearly super intelligent, and I'm not.
Thank you.
And I'm not being patronizing. It is clear you are intelligent. But and you've gone through this journey where you voted for this woman. Now you're in this place where you're actually looking at her with a more critical eye. What happened in between all of that?
First of all, I will say that I like the character, the personality of Kamala Harris, and I liked the personality of Obama. And a lot of people like the personality of Donald Trump. That is not why you vote for a president. It's not about personality. And that is how American politics gets you. You know, it gets you by sort of like showing you this, you know, person that is dynamic, that is interesting and all these things. And you then, it's almost like a celebrity following. You follow them because you like them. But at the end of the day, their decisions affect our lives every single day. For me, it was a journey, and it really goes into history. So I grew up between the US, UK, and West Africa, sort of back and forth all my life.
Nigeria, you mean? Or West Africa,
Togo and Lagos.
Right.
Togo and Lagos.
Right.
So Togo, Lomé, Togo. I went to boarding school there as well. But back and forth, and sort of like following this, and in all my experiences, I never learned African history in school, ever. So when I was 23, I started making a documentary on African history. And this is when things like the Berlin Conference, which I should have known about in school, was introduced to me. So you have to think about that sort of awakening. And it took time. You know, it took time to sort of like really learn the history that is hidden from Western media and Western propaganda. Unfortunately for us in Africa, we are forced to consume Western media and propaganda. DSTV is owned by a French company. So whatever comes out of there, it's controlled by the West. And another issue in Nigeria is that we elevate Western perspectives over ours. And there's no other people like it's even, at least like I'll give it to Black America. They don't do that. They don't pedestalize the views of the white man over our own. But we do that in Nigeria. And I had a conversation with someone about how this sort of like, because we have this like pride. We're not as bad as like countries like Kenya that they actually allow, you know, the white man, you know, run them. But we still have this sort of like schizophrenia whereby as much as we have our pride, we still somehow pedestalize everything the West.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go on a tangent, but so back to the story is I grew up in all these places and have just been watching this story. So why did I now decide that I was going to vote for, or that I'm questioning voting for Kamala Harris? For me, it started with the Ukraine war, whereby I sort of watched, wow, so this is somebody, Joe Biden is someone that we said we all, you know, went behind, we all backed. And out of nowhere, you watch them decide that would suppress like sort of the Russian narrative and decide we're going to do all these things to Russia. We're going to sanction them. We're going to remove them from every single sort of like social media, YouTube, all these things. And I think for me, it was shocking. And it's not like I don't support Russia. Honestly, to be honest, I don't even care what happens with these people. I'm not on Russia's side, nothing, but I am able to see both sides. And the question is, if they can remove Russia from YouTube, if they can remove them from what would they do to us Africans? At least Russian, they are white. These are white people. These are their own white people. They're doing this to their own white people. So what would they do to us if we fall out of line with their agenda? That was the first question. I was like, this is interesting. And as much as like, and there's this thing whereby you elect someone because you fall into the euphoria of their campaign, and then you're 2 years into their presidency, and they do things that don't align with you or you don't agree with, and you have no control. You have to wait another however many years to vote for them. So these are the things that sort of like awakened me. And then when you see sort of the whole sort of thing going on with BRICS, and sort of this movement with China, Russia, India, Brazil, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, all of them are BRICS. And you see sort of this changing world order, that is interesting to me. I think that is an opportunity to me for Africa. But I think that it's very important to understand the dynamics of colonialism and neocolonialism, and for us not to say, oh, we're going to swap this master for this master. But instead, I think a multipolar world is beneficial to Africa because it gives us leverage. I would even argue that right now we would say that we almost have like a bipolar world where there are two polars. We want to have like 5. So nobody can just take advantage of one country without, repercussions, or one continent without repercussions. But Africa's main issue has been that we weren't after slavery and between slavery and colonization, we were underdeveloped, which allowed us to be easily taken advantage of during colonization. And so it's just learning a lot about history. There's so many angles I could answer this question. It's learning about history, and just figuring out that, look, we need to do something about this, and there is a deeper issue with the Democratic Party that is not addressed and is ignored with propaganda.
I think from what I hear from you is this self-discovery, if you like. So learning this was about discovering who Kenim was becoming as an adult, as a key member of the globe, of Nigeria, of Africa, of society, as a contributor. And in order to be a contributor, as they keep saying, if you don't know where you're coming from, how do you know where you're going to? I think that's what I hear from you. I'm going to take you back a little, because I did enjoy your documentary. One of the things you said in there, you said Clinton's family deep imperialism. Talk to me about what you mean by that.
I mean, there's so many stories, but it's not necessarily just the Clintons. It's literally all US presidents.
The Obamas as well.
Yes, exactly. The Obama, and the whole documentary goes into deep dive on Obama. I didn't have time to do Clinton. Bush is not exempt from this. So it's really all of them. And when I think about Clinton, I mean, obviously in the 90s, they did a lot of stuff then that was hidden and suppressed in the media. But even just most recently with Gaddafi, and it's all, we talk about, at least like now we have a platform to talk about these things. Gaddafi, they were okay with like North Africa developing and being successful. It's when North Africa wanted to say, we want to reach out to the rest of Africa and go back towards this pan-African empowerment movement. That's when they became a threat. And that's the same thing when you look at Kwame Nkrumah, when you look at the Pan-African movements during independence, that's the same issue we face. So whenever they see, oh no, Africans are talking about unifying and developing in that way, that's when the West sort of like sees that as a threat to their balance sheets, effectively. And so that's when they come and attack you. So it wasn't a specific thing about the Clintons, but it was more so like when you think about who was Obama's Secretary of State, it was Hillary Clinton. So she was going to naturally pass on her foreign policies to him and school him in that line. And I see the same thing with Kamala also. In Joe Biden being, her being his vice president, it's very likely that she will continue what he has already started. So it's not just to point fingers at any. The problem is that when we look at these personalities, that's how they get away with us with not changing their policies, because it's like, oh, we've changed the person, but the policies are still the same. And I'm not talking about what the policies in the US specifically. I'm talking about making sure that Africa is underdeveloped. But okay, I guess before I even get into that, for anybody that's listening, just so they can understand how things work in the world, Africa needs to stay underdeveloped because we provide about 30% of the world's natural resources. So what the West wants and has done is that we cannot control our resources. If we do, and what that means by control is not just exporting raw materials and sending it to the world. They make the money on the surplus. So we export the raw materials, they manufacture and process it, in the West or around the world. And if you know a little bit about economics, when you manufacture things, that's when you build up a middle class. That's when you build your economy. And then they sell us back the finished goods in a surplus. So that's why things are so expensive in Nigeria. If we manufactured in Nigeria, the prices of things would be stable. We would be able to keep the prices low because we know it's coming from our soil. And so that is how they get Africa. And that's the place that they've put Africa in. So it's up to us to liberate ourselves from that.
Indeed.
And anytime we do that, a leader is killed, one of our leaders are killed, or wiped out, something happens. And there is this sort of idea that the people that they have, that they have put in office sort of are, some people call them puppets, however you want to call them, but they're puppets that are there to maintain the global order, to keep Africa underdeveloped. These leaders tend to enrich themselves.
Yeah.
And the West is able to enrich itself even further. But that's sort of the deal that they have in Africa.
Let's talk about then, where is the responsibility then of Africa itself? Yes, they don't want us to develop. Yes, they will continue to keep us down. At the end of the day, human beings are inherently selfish, right? Every single president of the world is about country first. As I often find myself saying about people when it comes to Harris and Trump and every American president before them, they are America first, which for me is what MAGA means. It doesn't actually mean Trump, in my opinion. It means, well, after all, Trump wasn't the first to use it. It was Ronald Reagan that was the first to use it. So where then is the responsibility for African leaders itself? Both African leaders and Africans themselves. These Africans who are constantly, like you said, defaulting to Western narratives to talk about self, to talk about, continent, country, etc. Where is the responsibility?
The responsibility is the African people. It's not your fault what happens to you, but it's your responsibility to fix it and to chart the course of your life, right? One thing about the African people, and this is why I made this documentary, is that there's a reason for a time period in Nigeria our history was not taught in our schools. There's a reason that we are not circulating information amongst ourselves, right? Those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. And so that responsibility, this is why it's part of my job to spread the information so people understand the history of what has happened. But it's our responsibility, because nothing happens to you that you don't allow. So even the leaders, even as far as whoever we have as leaders, you can say, oh, they stole the election, they rigged the election. Why did you allow it to happen? And this is not me saying that it's good.
Yeah.
This is not me, I'm not saying that, I'm not taking the side of the leaders. I'm just thinking about a lion. When you think about survival of the fittest, when that lion comes and sees you in the desert, and what are you going to do about it? And I think what I want to see in Africa, especially the youth, is an activation, is a waking up, is a spreading of our information, sharing of our information, and actually putting together real, true leadership. Seasoned, because we've had this, military eras. I do not advocate for that. I think it's, awful. I know some people want that back, but God forbid. I think when I look at countries that have developed in the past, say 30, 40 years, I'm thinking, especially Asian countries like, Korea, China, Singapore, even though Singapore is interesting, because some of these countries don't have any resources, so you can't really compare them to Africa, because it's clear that Africa has the resources, so everybody is going to fight for Africa. Who cares if Singapore develops? But when you look at all of them, right? Well, Saudi Arabia, when you look at them, what is the key thing that they all had? They had authoritarian leadership. Right? They have authoritarian leadership, and authoritarian leadership is not military leadership. So authoritarian leadership is about, you have a leader that decides, it's almost like a company, right? We're all used to authoritarian, leadership. If you work in any sort of corporate setting, there's one leader, they have a direction, and this is where the country is going. When you start, even when the West developed, it didn't develop from democracy. So this sort of tool of us saying, oh, we have to have democracy, is also the West trying to cripple us. Because when you have so many people in government that are just that causes the conflicts and the, all of that. That's how you stop growth. So and Africa has been, I hate to use the word cursed, but stagnant in a way, because it's either we have that democratic thing whereby all these people are fighting in governments and we're going in different directions, and somebody comes, they change course, another person comes, they change course. Or we have a sort of like this dictator type military ruler that is still trying to run you into the ground. And so the countries that I specifically brought up, these leaders were seasoned. These leaders had a, education in economics and all these things, understood business, and they decided, we have this is our target, just like any, this is our target, this is our growth, our goal for growth, and these are the steps that we're going to do to build that.
Indeed.
And unfortunately, in authoritarian countries, freedom of press does not come with that, because you have to control the narrative around your country around the world. So even somewhere like, so people love to give China, crap for that. Countries like Singapore don't have freedom of press. Countries like Saudi Arabia don't have freedom of press. But when you see Saudi Arabia, or even UAE, they don't have freedom of press. But when you see those countries, so the question for Nigerians are: would you rather be talking on the internet and insulting your leadership, or would you rather your country actually works?
Okay.
So it's part of the propaganda from the West that tells us that
that we have to look like them. We have to do democracy like
and
them.
they didn't even look like them when they were building. So it's interesting.
Again, this is why I had to have this conversation with you, because one of the things that I've heard from you now is that, and which we constantly explore, it's these conversations, they happen in pockets, right? Is that, at which point do we reshape democracy to the way we are as a people, right? Rather than having it the way theirs is. At which point do we say, okay, we want our leaders to not swear by the Bible or the Quran, but they should swear by Shango and Obatala, all those things. And when I hear such conversations, and like you rightly said, a dictator, the Chinese model comes to mind. The China model that's literally in 30 years, in 3 generations or so, has raised them from the poorest to, the most socially, economically powerful force that can face America head on. At which point do we pivot, mature, and find the courage to say, you know what, here's how we're going to do it. You keep yours, we're gonna have ours. And I think that's what you're saying. Now, you mentioned something earlier, activation. I love that word because it's a very young word. It's a very young word. It's it's used by the Gen Zs and millennials quite a lot. And when I hear it, I think the Nigerian Renaissance. I think our food, Afrobeats, young people like you who are representing Nigeria, Africa, all over the world. I think of our fashion. I think of places where we're dominating in culture, etc. But where else should we be dominating that we're not playing in is not where I'm looking at. Where is it that we're looking away from? Where's that bracket that we're missing a trick?
So unfortunately for Nigeria, we love to focus on cosmetic, surface level things like, who is having a party today, who is in the newspaper today, like these surface things that don't really do much for us. We really need to get back to the roots of the core developmental areas that will actually grow our economy. That is agriculture, that is healthcare, that is education, that's infrastructure development, and that is power. When we fix those sectors, the country, like all this Afrobeat, because when you really bring up Afrobeats, and no offense to anybody, I enjoy music and all of that. How much does Afrobeats make? I think last year it generated $100 million. That's pennies. In when you think about a country's economy, that's nothing. Yeah. Do you understand? Like, what is that? Yeah. What's that going to do for a country and an economy, right? Yeah. When you could be, if we solved our agriculture issues, and then we also had the policies that stopped people from selling us goods, right? Some of these agricultural goods, and so you only have to buy it in Nigeria.
Yeah.
That means we are fully sustainable. We feed everybody in Nigeria, right? Think about how much money that would be the farmers would be making. People that own farms, people that are supplying these goods. So we do have pockets of that. We have people like Dangote who have made sure that they get a monopoly on sugar and other products. But what if we said we said all the products in Nigeria, and we make sure there's tight policies. That's why you see tariffs, tariffs for imports on certain goods. You give it like a 50% tariff or something, so that you make sure that Nigeria supplies its own food. Now, in order for us to do that, we have to solve insecurity.
Yeah.
Right. Especially in the north, we have to solve that. So it's really about having these strategic economic plans that will actually develop Nigeria, not, let us make more Afrobeat stars. So I really want to encourage people that are listening. I want to encourage people to, like, you want to start a restaurant, you want to start, I don't know, a YouTube channel, which is like fine. I think media is important, right? Media is very important for spreading information if you are actually knowledgeable and you're not spreading fake news. But media is important for getting the news out. But all these sort of surface level, you want to start fashion brand, and not insult anybody. But before we start on these cosmetic surface level,
I think what you're saying is
let us solve the roots first,
the infrastructure.
Let us yes, exactly. Let's build that infrastructure first. So I really want to encourage the young people to stop looking at all these sort of like cosmetic industries and start going to the core developmental issues in Nigeria. Look at healthcare. It has such huge issues in healthcare. And another thing I want to add, and this is so important to me, right? People think it costs a lot of money to do these things, but one thing that we have the richest economy, one of the richest economies in the world, because we have human capital. So we already have the potential to have next to free, not free because it's not slavery, but next to free labor from Nigeria. When you think about why is America the country it is, because it exported Africans into their country. They got free labor for how many hundreds of years? Now we have all that free labor that are just idle. Imagine if we had leadership that said, no, everybody must work. I want to build farms. Everybody must work on this farm. I want to build factories. You must work on this, whatever. And we will sort of like, I'm not saying that it's going to be free. You will pay them, but you can control the economy when you do that. Right? So if you look at sort of some of the developmental Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Right? And you think, first of all, if I can solve people with food, so if I say I get all this free labor, I put them into these farms, and whoever works in the farm gets free food. You've already solved half of the most Nigerians' issue right now. You have given them food, and you're saying, in exchange for that food, I'm getting free labor out of you. Do you understand?
Yes.
And then you now say, okay, I give them housing, right? I give them all of these things. And I give them, I don't know, some sort of like, they make some money out of it.
Yes, indeed. Skills.
You can solve these fundamental issues.
Yes.
Exactly. Then you start training. Then you start training people on all these other industries that we need support with.
Thank you.
So I think that a lot of us, if you're starting another, I don't know, delivery truck company, this, that, think about core developmental things. I think about how you can contribute in that way.
Thank you. Soft power is what we've been talking about, right? That's what you said. Let's get away from the soft power because we already have the soft. Okay, we're dominating that soft power space. If soft power is pushing out content and getting gazillion millions of views, hard power is infrastructure, right? So let's talk about infrastructure with regards to modern age, digital infrastructure. We have Facebook, we have IG, we have TikTok, we have X. We don't have one that belongs to Africa. Not one. That's why a whole African stream is able to be taken down. And incidentally, there was an outrage across Africa.
So again, that goes back to who owns our media. When there's somebody in France that owns, the media landscape, that's DSTV. Then you have other people owning everything. We're not sharing the information. Whatever we post on social media can just be suppressed because we don't own that infrastructure, right? And so
So how do we,
Yeah,
I
well,
think my question would have been, we're now in a battle, what I call the war of algorithms, right?
yeah.
How does Africa begin to get the tools to fight, to also be part of that war of algorithm? Because China
You don't
and
need to do
US
that.
are fighting theirs with TikTok and, and Facebook and IG. Africa is in the middle. Africa becomes, as usual, the victim when two giants fight, right? So what does Africa do to actually be part of that algorithm dominance?
So again, okay, so let's look at the numbers, right? By 2050, 1 in 4 people on the planet will be African. By that same 2050, 1 in 3 people on the planet that are young, I believe it's under 16, will be African. So we are the future.
Right.
Right? So the next step to that is I can't go into your house and ask you for your master bedroom. Like, what will you tell me? Do you understand? You can't go to someone else's house and ask for that. So we have to build our own. And at the end of the day, the vision that I see, we need sort of like governments to intervene and support a homegrown platform. Because here's the thing. We can face a lot of issues if, say, we want to build a platform and we want the world to consume it.
Right.
I'll give you an example. So number one, when China was doing its social media thing, they first said nobody is bringing Facebook or anything into China. Whatever it is, we're creating our own. So now they already owned the minds and the propaganda of their society. So they own that infrastructure. TikTok did well in China. I think it was called Biding. I can't remember the name, the Chinese name. They said, okay, let's make one for the world. So now we can push the Chinese agenda around the world, right? We're giving ourselves our own Facebook, etc. So TikTok is only just a weapon for Chinese global domination, right? So it's not part of what China has already solved its own internally. This is just an external thing. Let us infiltrate the world and dominate the world. And let us look at, they gave us a UPS that the Western social media didn't give. Because on TikTok, you could post immediately and you go viral. They created the creator middle class on TikTok. They invented that.
Say that again. The creator middle class. Say it again,
yes.
please.
They created the creator, that's influencer, middle class. So because before TikTok, think about it. How hard was it for you to blow on YouTube? How hard was it to blow on Instagram? It was near impossible. They now created stars overnight, which created loyalty to their platform. So you have to find a UPS that these platforms have not already dominated in. Now, the next step is with America, because America still owns the world's minds. America is going to try and take you down because you're not US owned, right? As they're doing with TikTok. So now, if you have a government on your side in policy, well, if America takes down our platform, let's say it is whatever we create, well, then we're going to take down YouTube and Google from Africa. Imagine if we have that leverage to say, if you take down our platform that is spreading, Black empowerment content, etc., well, we will take down Google, we will take down YouTube, we will take down your own platforms. Indeed. That is the type of leverage that we need in policy. So we're not really going to go far unless we have governments on our side, and that's the kind of leverage that we need in policy to be able to give, that they will say, okay, wait now, just hold on.
Thank you.
Because we have the numbers at the end of the day.
Indeed.
So it's inevitable that we've already won this game. It's just now who is going to control the minds of Africans, who is going to give Africans, whose propaganda are Africans going to consume? Because everybody has propaganda. We can't say
Indeed.
Everybody has, an agenda with their media. So whose propaganda are Africans going to believe and consume?
Thank you.
And I would hope that it is from Africa, that we consume our own propaganda. That benefits us, right?
Let's go back to America now again. So you have the Dems, you have the GOP. Now you have Jill Stein and Butchware, right? Now, of course, Nigerians are thinking, who? What? You have the Green Party. They're thinking, who? What? America's a two-party country. It's only got the Democrats and it's only got, the Republicans. Tell my listeners about Jill Stein, Buchwe or Dr. I've forgotten his real name, the Green Party, who they are and why they have been so important to this election cycle.
Okay, so in America, there are third parties. Just like in Nigeria, when you see the ballot and you see all those third parties, there, I think we have quite a few third parties here in America. And at the time, it was JF Kennedy, RF Kennedy that was running, but he pulled out.
Right, yeah.
So he was the most popular third party at that time, but he pulled out. Jill Stein ran in 2016 against Hillary. She took I hate this narrative that she took votes from Hillary because nobody, like, you don't own anyone's votes. So a lot of people that would have voted for Hillary voted for Jill Stein instead. Not that many, like I think it was like 1.5 million people. But it goes a long way. So this election, the Green Party are targeting, they're really like capturing that sort of like Palestine, Gaza audience of people that are just upset with the Democratic Party for not serving them. So they're getting a lot of votes.
The uncommitted, as they call them, right? The uncommitted.
Independents.
Yeah, I think there's a movement called the uncommitted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know there's a lot of Muslim Americans that are voting for Jill Stein. I think she's even more popular in some states. She's more popular than Kamala. But this is all polls that we don't, so there's that. And then also, when I say more popular, amongst Muslim American voters.
That's right.
Then you have a lot of Black Americans who are just upset. Like, first of all, they will never vote for Donald Trump because he's, a white supremacist and all these things. Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party, people are waking up to the fact that they get elected on Black votes and then they ignore Black people for their presidency. And so there's been pushback from the Democratic Party about this. Kamala has said, she's done quite a bit, but people are not satisfied with what she's done. I think the core things that people are not satisfied with is the fact that police brutality has even increased since the Democrats came into office. There's stuff like lack of reparations that people want. There's stuff like there's so many things. The economy is not great right now, so people, and then Black people always suffer the worst. There's a saying that if a white man catches a cold, the Black man should catch a flu or something. So as the economy is not doing well, Black people are affected by it disproportionately, and so there are a lot of people that are just not happy with the Democratic Party because they come in, they get the Black vote, they sort of think they have this entitlement that Black people owe it to us to vote for us, and then they get in office and they don't really do much for Black people. So people are upset with that. So they're looking at Jill Stein. And Jill Stein is speaking the language of Black people, which Kamala just hasn't been able to, or she wouldn't be able to. Jill Stein is talking about reparations. She's talking about inequity in healthcare. She's going into the deep-rooted issues and policies and speaking to that voice of a Black American. So there are a lot of people that are looking to her. But I just want to add that even if she does get those votes, she cannot win because she doesn't have any electoral college votes. But what they're trying to do with their party is not about winning, but is about building a third party movement. So the more that they grow, the more opportunity there is for three parties in America, which actually would be beneficial.
Right. People have been calling since we've been speaking and I didn't answer them. Kenny, I'm getting messages. People are loving the conversation we're having. They're loving your point of view. They find it refreshing. I've just seen a message from somebody that I didn't even know listened to this show. So you can call, okay? You know how it is on Borderlines, your name, where you're calling from, and be very, very short. We have no more time. 1 hour goes very fast, as you all know, right? So I'm coming to your calls now, 0201-277-0993. Female line is 0201-465-7190. WhatsApp is 0809-597-5805. Those of you who are watching us on YouTube, you know where to put your comments, on Instagram and on Facebook. Okay, I'm coming to your lines now. Hello. Gosh, all the lines are alive. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good afternoon. What's your name and where you calling from, please?
Yeah, good. This is a truth.
Chooks, go ahead very quickly.
Yeah, good day to the conversation you're having there. I really love the conversation. And I'm pleased I'm not as much as you didn't necessarily answer straight up like who is the name of the documentary. You said
okay, you want the name of the documentary? I'll let you know.
Like,
yes.
No, you were like, I mean, you didn't seem to answer clearly like which of these two. Like Pope Francis said, which one is the lesser evil? If Pope Francis is listening.
Okay,
like,
you would like her to answer it. You want her to answer. Okay, I will ask her.
I'm asking like, how like in Nigeria, how do I control the narrative I get from the West? Like, okay, what idea we believe that there's no culture that is perfect. How do you now say this is what I'll collect, this is not what I'll accept from any cult from Western culture?
Thank you very much, Chooks. That's a really interesting question. Write those down. I'll come back to you. And he did know that I was saving the question till the end. So don't answer that part, who the best one is. We're saving that till the end. Right, I'm coming to your calls now. Hello? Okay, you snooze, you lose. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, good afternoon.
This is Joy.
Joy, go ahead.
I'm a black woman. Nigeria, God bless. That's your guest.
My guest is Kenim O. You can follow her at Kenim O on Instagram. I am Kenim O.
Intelligent.
I am Kenim on Instagram.
Yeah, I am Kenim on Instagram. Go on.
She is highly intelligent and understands Africans. This Western narrative played out in Nigerian election last year. And I know they did not help because they wanted a puppet. And because they have compromise, do you also believe that the West usually have
I need you to hurry up, ma. Literally, we don't have time.
Don't you also know that most times they have, these Western leaders have compromise against our leaders?
Okay.
That's the reason why most of the you see the West, oh gosh.
Yes.
This World Bank and all that.
I understand.
They play against the African economy, telling us to borrow more. Why they know it is eating us up. And now they also come with Afro and the Afro whatever, and they try to throw corners.
I need to go. There are so many calls.
Thank you. To make us feel that we are wanted. Meanwhile, no, that is not what it is. And God bless you, Kenny.
Thank you.
Hello. Oops. You guys, please be very, very succinct. I know you all want to talk to her. We don't have time. We literally have, about 10 minutes left. That's how fast 1 hour goes. And I can't answer all your calls. All the lines are alive, Kenny. You calls this. Hello? Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah. Thank you. This is the point back. Yeah. First of all, let me ask you again. What does you think about Fela Oyinbo mentality? That's one. Number two.
No, you get one question.
No. That's not.
Okay, what is your question?
Sorry, ma. You see, the number thing is this. In 1973, Muritala was in an OAU meeting. He said, Africa has come of age. Few days after, he was assassinated. In 1993, Abela said he's going to use African solution to solve African problems. World Bank.
I need you to hurry up. I'm going to have to cut you off.
Yes,
what is your question?
Do you think you can ever have leaders in Africa that can think and stand right to toe by toe to the Oyimbos?
Okay. Do you think?
Sorry, what was his question?
Do you think we can ever have leaders that stands upright and can stand up to the Westerners? Right. I'm going to pick one more. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Turn your radio off, please.
Yes, I've done so.
Okay, go ahead. Very quickly, please.
I'm calling from VI.
Yes.
My question is this: we understand why World Bank is there, and they destabilize Africa against the population and use few leaders like in Cameroon they are using for beer and all that. How do we begin to let the whole world know that World Bank can never work in the interest of Africans? How do we begin to dismantle this mindset and set up something that works for us?
Thank you. Right, you have 3 there. This is the speedy round. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. The lines are literally and I'll still have WhatsApp questions and comments and stuff. So 2 minutes now.
Okay, so how do we control the narrative that we consume? You have to do your own research. You have to look into African history and study and prioritize African platforms for your media. The West does not prioritize what anybody else says but them. You should have discernment and look at who is saying what and how beneficial is what they're saying to you, because the Western economic system benefits them, not us. So whatever narratives they push is not for our benefit, no matter how much they say it. So that's number one. Number two, how can we have leaders that can stand upright and stand up to the West? We just have to be fearless. We have to choose. We have to have revolutionaries. We have to have young people, I believe, that are ready to no longer be puppets and to chart our new path. And then the World Bank. How do we get people to understand that the World Bank is never here to save us? It has to do with the leadership. The leadership has to understand that and needs to fight for that. And then also, I just want to say, when you look at Rwanda, we have to. That's why I advocate for an authoritarian type of government, because you have to root out your enemies from the country. Unfortunately, like this is for Africa and Nigeria. You have to root out your enemies that will betray you and backstab you from the country. So you make sure the country all agrees we are on one mission to improve Africa. We're on one mission to improve Nigeria. And you don't allow anybody say anything other than that.
Okay.
So unfortunately, yeah, that's what it takes.
I have a really good question here on WhatsApp from Bawo in Ikorodu. He said, hello, Sisioge. Please, I want to ask your guest if the dormancy of the minds of our secondary and university students in the development and active citizenship of Nigeria is... Oh, okay. The lack of, it means. Right. It means the lack of, the minds of our secondary and university students in the development and the active citizenship of Nigeria, if that's what's the problem. And how can we activate young minds? 1 minute.
It's intentional. It's intentional. Those the educational system is intentionally designed to get us down. So we have to, if everybody everyone is watching this, read history, learn history, and do your own part to educate the young people that you see. Because until we can put leadership in place to put proper systems of education, we have to do that work ourselves.
Okay. I have a message here on WhatsApp. That woman is truly intelligent. I have always maintained that this copied Western style of democracy is not working for us. The West is evil and doesn't want Africa to develop. That's from Udochi. I have another here. They're chasing me. They're already telling me that I have 5 minutes left. Sisi, okay, greetings to you and your very intelligent guest. She has a very, very clear picture of Nigeria and by extension, Africa's problem and the solutions. She deserves to be Nigeria's next president. I didn't say that, they did. Right, I'm coming to your calls. Please make it short, otherwise I have to cut you off. We don't have time. And I've still got a question for Kenim. Hello?
Hello, Sister Girl.
Good afternoon. Quickly, very quickly.
Good afternoon, Sister Girl.
Go ahead.
I thank your guest so much. She's very intelligent. I don't know that she's a woman. Sister Girl, see here, before we are going to be free, what will make us to be free is to know our names in Africa and what it means. To use our name to start the life. That's the only thing that will solve our problem. I want her to think about it. Every name in Africa, I'm an Igbo man. It makes you to know where you belong.
Thank you.
And the institutions that will lift you up.
Thank you very much.
Name.
Thank you.
That is what we should do. We use it to make a movie.
Thank
so
you.
That people will understand the best way to go.
Okay.
As African people. Thank you.
Okay. Kenim, there you have it. Your next project, make a movie about our names. Hello? Okay, you snooze, you lose. Last call that I'm picking up. Hello? Okay. Last call. Hello?
Hi, Sister again.
Good afternoon. Very quickly.
Mrs. Zaboli calling.
Go ahead. You have literally now.
I want to say thank you to your guest, Sister again. But I just want to ask, how does she push this her narrative? It's a beautiful concept. How is she pushing this so that everybody can be carried along, the youth and even the generations that are coming? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, Mrs. Oboli, I can probably answer that for you. The documentary. You've got to go and watch her documentary. Right, Kenim. But the question they've been wanting me to ask you, though, who is the best US president for Africa, Nigeria?
The answer is probably Jill Stein, but she won't win. And I cannot say. Like I said, we'll have to find out who wins, and between Kamala and Trump. who wins and what happens, because Trump could create chaos to our benefit, but it could also be to our detriment. Let's remember that his son-in-law is not in Nigeria, but he grew up in Nigeria. His son-in-law, so he may have a vested interest in Nigeria, and that would not be to our benefit. So there are different angles here. Definitely go and watch my documentary at Business in Nigeria on YouTube. So if you just do the @ Business in Nigeria, you can write who is the best US president for Africa, and you can put Kenim O, KENIM space O, and it should pop up for you.
Right, and your Instagram handle, very quickly.
At I am Kenim.
Right.
So just I am Kenim on Instagram.
Now
so Kenim is like Kenim is it like denim with a K? Kenim.
Okay. I've got 3 minutes, so I'm gonna sneak 1 minute before I pick up the last call. Since they said you should be president of Nigeria, when do you think we're gonna have the first female president of Nigeria? Prediction.
Prediction. I would say
not United States, so Nigeria. Nigeria, Neil.
Yes. Maybe in 20 years, maybe less, maybe 10 years. We'll see.
Would Kenim be in contention for that post?
Let's see. If you follow me on Instagram, let's see. Keep watching my content.
Absolutely. Right. I'm going to pick up the very last one because they're about to throw me off. Hello.
Hello, Cici, and hello, Kenim. So just quickly to chip in, thank you, Ibeti, for this. Africa needs a pseudo democracy. Africa needs our own context of what we call democracy, and if we get it right, then Africa will be emancipated. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You didn't say your name.
Oh, I did. Etemari. My name is Etemari.
Etemari, thank you very much. Kenim, you see, this is how we do it on Borderlines. It's incredibly busy, incredibly charged. Even my studio, she's here, she's loving the conversation. I'm so glad you were able to join us. I hope you enjoyed it. How is your documentary going? Are people watching it?
Yes, thank you so much. And yes, people are watching it, people are engaged, people are consuming it. Definitely go check it out and leave a comment on YouTube saying that you came from here.
Yes, keep doing what you do. And honestly, young people, especially young African Nigerian females like you, excite me so very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend.
All right, thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right, that's the end of another edition of Borderlines, the only show that takes you beyond borders. What an exciting edition this has been. My name is Reti Bakari Yusuf. I will be back next week. Take care and have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.
More news and information coming up. We'll be back in a moment. 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.